So, Mike, following the very successful development and delivery of the London 2012, you were then associated with the NOC, the National Olympic Coordination Centre, and you were then approached by representatives of people in Brazil to see if you could take that model across into Brazil for the, I believe it was the 2014 FIFA World Cup. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, the UK Olympic Games 2012 and the NOC presented us with a unique set of products that were scalable, flexible, and adaptable to many, many different events, organisations, critical infrastructure, cities, and even nations. And we were asked to go to Brazil, based in Rio de Janeiro, to make an assessment initially on how we could best link the 12 cities hosting the FIFA World Cup in 2014 with national government and new structures which were referred to as regional command and control centres, so city-based command and control centres, and national level command and control centres. What we were able to do was use the NOC blueprint which, as I said, was adaptable, to adapt it to a fundamentally different environment with fundamentally different requirements. But I believe that is where the power of the blueprint for the NOC lies. Its adaptability to different environments and different threat risk scenarios. For example, there was less of a significant terrorist threat in Brazil, but more of a significant serious and organised crime threat. So the processes for information exchange, the intelligence model, and the decision-making processes were adapted to a slightly different threat spectrum.
Looking at the NOC model as it was developed in the UK, and then thinking about how that is then transferred into, as you say, a completely different operational environment, it seems to me there's probably three areas that need to be considered. One is the organisational structure. Who sits there? Who joins in? The second is a threat environment. What are we trying to deal with, both of which you've spoken about? But it seems to me that the third significant issue is the operational culture. How mature the surrounding infrastructure is, how aware people are of information sharing, what protocols are in place already, and how open people are to managing those issues. What challenges did you face in trying to take the NOC from the UK, which is a mature, developed, multi-agency framework, into somewhere like Brazil, which might not have had the same sort of infrastructure in place?
Yes, there are a number of components to the blueprint, the model that we put in place for the Olympic Coordination Centre, which are no different to, in the way we do our business, no different to the components to any major event, safe city, structures or critical national infrastructure. And those structures really are around a significantly detailed understanding of the threat risk spectrum to start with. And then there are a number of components that we need to understand before we design and plan our responses and prioritise the resources for those responses. And they really are the organisations that are involved, understanding who they are, so we can understand what information needs to be shared. The information itself, what we call the information exchange requirements, so what information needs to be shared between what partners under what threat risk situations or scenarios. Clearly, there are the business processes that support that information and intelligence exchange and the decision-making that elicits a response. And the fourth major component is the assurance, the validation of that activity through training, testing, and validation events. there's a significant amount of technology involved in all of that. But we always demonstrate that technology should be used in an enabling capacity, not as the foundation for whatever it is you're trying to design. And that brings me on to the cultural aspect of the question, which is significance. Because what we're not seeking to do is design a technological system that will respond. What we are seeking to do is design a culture amongst the people involved in the planning, preparation and response that will extend across the full tactical, operational, strategic and government level decision-making elements and organisations. The culture in Brazil, understandably, was very different to the culture in the United Kingdom. And therefore what we did not seek to do in any way was change the way they plan and prepare their tactical and operational response. What we did seek to do was change the way they prioritised and shared information across a highly technical environment in the face of subtly different threats and risks to that which London faced.
I imagine that it is critically important to have support at the highest level as an enabling trigger to allow everything else to cascade down through the system. Were you happy with the level of support you got at that stage?
Yes, we were, but again, the fundamental differences between the way UK government and Brazil's government operated it didn't serve as a barrier to putting in place the right decision-making or the right information exchange model. It certainly probably made it a little bit more challenging and slower than it did in the UK, because there was less appetite by on behalf of the Brazilian intelligence agencies, for example, to share intelligence and security-related information.
Okay, so we've now got the 2014 FIFA World Cup, gone well, and after that you were then brought in to discuss a same sort of project for the 2016 Rio Olympics. Now again, the FIFA World Cup, 12 cities, 12 regional management systems, each with their own NOC or integrated management system, which then had to be integrated into an overarching architecture. How much was that preparation of value in moving across to Rio? Was that then sort of Rio, FIFA plus, or was it a separate project from your management perspective?
The transition from FIFA World Cup to Olympic Games, Rio 2016, was an interesting challenge for the Brazilian government. Importantly, the structures, the information exchange architectures were already in place. So the national level of command and control coordination, Rio's city level command and control centre, as well as their municipal command and control centres, had been tested and validated. Tragically, the macroeconomic situation in Brazil at the time, or in the lead up to 2016, presented some challenges to the Brazilian government, and unfortunately we weren't able to influence the security design, resilience design of the Olympic Games in the way that we would have liked to, because the military took over and used military structures for information exchange and intelligence gathering and sharing. I'm pleased to say what we were able to do was influence the planning and preparation for the Olympic Games in Rio through the application of what we call a capability integration plan. So we were able to design the various technical, procedural, people and processes around that progressive assurance to Olympic safety and security.
And would you say that the process of designing and developing the process for the Rio Olympics, did that follow pretty much the same progressive structure as for London 2012, or did you have to start again and sort of rethink it from basic principles?
It was interesting that the Brazilian government did not perceive there to be a need to train, test, validate as much as we did in London. That may well have been because there was a fundamentally different or lower terrorist threat in Rio de Janeiro for the Olympic Games. And therefore, it probably wasn't as detailed and probably wasn't as structured as the lead up to UK 2012.